audience members who are lobbying around in the lobby. Just a couple of quick intro comments. That I see some familiar faces from the first couple of days, and it's really great to see people coming back. This was our first symposium. We've Hispanic Heritage Symposium, and someone from the Office of Communications and Marketing, who will be writing an article on the symposium, contacted me the day before yesterday with some questions, so that I could give some answers that may be incorporated into the article. And one of the questions was, have we ever had a Hispanic Heritage Symposium at UIW? And I've only been here for 5 years, and based on my knowledge, I don't believe we've had a Hispanic Heritage Symposium. So I just want to ask the audience here, because I suspect that there's many people here or a few people here who have been here significantly longer than I have, and have a better memory, longer memory. Does anyone here know about a Hispanic Heritage Symposium that's been held here at UIW? No, okay. Yes. Uh-huh. Okay. The Sisters of the Congregation. Yeah. Yes. That's great. You know, and I think that the sisters' heritage, and I mean, even just within the Hispanic heritage topic, there's a huge area of overlap, of course, right? Between the sisters, and I'm just scratching the surface on the history of the sisters, which is unbelievable. And I've been fortunate to engage with them pretty closely on a number of different projects and areas. And it's amazing. I wish that would have come out more in this symposium. It's come out a little bit, but I think next time I'm going to be intentional about like prodding to. I think they're an important part. I know they're an important part of why we value our Hispanic heritage at UIW. And then also just the fact that so many of the sisters are more and more are particularly Mexicanas, Mexican American, but also from Mexico for a number of reasons. Well, okay, let me go ahead and start. I just, before I hand it off to our moderator, Gabriel Saxton Ruiz, I just want to quickly, first of all, thank everyone for being here. And also, some of you have heard this before, but I do want to thank our programming committee, because they spent a lot of time going through the presentation proposals, and everyone is so busy. So I really appreciate everyone taking time for important things that are really outside the job description. Dr. Javier Claver, Dean of CHAS, Dr. Laura Lopez, Assistant Professor of English at CHAS, Dr. Leticia Vargas, Associate Professor and Course Site Director for the Office of Clinical Affairs at the School of Osteopathic Medicine, Dr. Alicia Rubio, Undergraduate Director and Professor of Finance for the HEB School of Business and Administration, and she was one of our moderators yesterday, Dr. Gabriel Saxton Ruiz, who will be moderating and presenting today, Professor of Spanish, and my friend, my colleague, my partner in crime for this symposium, Mr. Teófilo Reyes, Assistant Director of Leadership and Global Engagement for the Etling Center for Civic Leadership and Sustainability. And the Etling Center has been a key partner for us at the Lewis Center for putting on this event. And I couldn't have done it without Theo, because he just has knowledge areas that I don't. So with no further ado, I'll hand it off to my another friend and colleague, Dr. Gabriel Saxton Ruiz.
Buenas tardes, buenas tardes. Muy bien. All right. Well, before I introduce our first speaker today, I do also want to say some words of gratitude, especially to Dr. Rafael Hoyle. As most of you know, or those of you who know me, know that I'm not a people person. I try to avoid people events. But if Dr. Hoyle is organizing and leading it, then I'll be there for the ride. And also my buddy, soon to be Dr. Teofilo Reyes, okay? I like saying Teofilo, not Tio. I know sometimes you go by Tio, but Teofilo reminds me of Teofilo Cubillas, who is one of my boyhood heroes. Well, he's a soccer player, so stuff. I do want to thank a whole bunch of other people, but I'm going to forget names. So the only other group that I wanted to signal out are the students who are here. I want to thank you for being here, for participating, and for engaging with all these different presentations. I know some of you are here under duress, okay? I get it, okay? Or some of you are here for other reasons, you know, perhaps crédito extra, okay? But I do want you to know that a lot of what we do is for you. No todo, ¿ah? O sea, tranquilos. It's not always about you, okay? A lot of it is, okay? But I am overjoyed to see you guys all here, and I'm looking forward to your comments and questions at the end of today's panel. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my awesome colleague from CHAS, Dr. Adrienne Knock Ambrose. She is an associate professor of religious studies. She's been here since 2001. What? Oh, that's crazy. I wasn't even born yet. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was rude, right? I know. I'm just trying to get into the thing today. Okay. Sorry. Anyways, she began teaching here in 2001. And this I didn't know. I think this is really cool, but she was trained as a church historian. And Dr. Ambrose has expanded her academic interests over the course of her teaching career. In 2021, she successfully applied for a grant to support revamping some of the introductory and beginning courses for religious studies. And she and her colleagues continue to develop the course, striving to offer a culturally relevant classroom experience. Her research interests are super cool. They focus on the relationship of visual culture and religion. I love the title of her book, Holywood. I like that. Camera and Catholics in the Age of American Spectacle. And it's currently under contract with Fortress Press. Her presentation is From Deficit to Strength, Student-Centered Learning in Religious Studies and Theology. But please welcome Dr. Ambrose. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saxon Ruiz. I don't often get to call you that, but here we are. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see, I want to situate that. Yeah, so I'm not going to reread the presentation title for you because it is a lot of words, but I just wanted to mention that the thrust of the presentation and the course I'll be talking about is really a shift from a looking at students as deficient in knowledge to looking at what students bring to the classroom. So let's start. So I wanted to just introduce two models, ways of looking at the content of the course, but also to acknowledge that when I say introducing religion and theology to students, that's a little presumptuous because, you know, students already are coming with their own backgrounds, various backgrounds of orientation to religion and theology, convictions in some cases or questions in others. So it's not as though we're introducing them to these topics, but it is an introductory level course that provides or serves as a core requirement for all UIW students. So the two models, both of them are actually biblical. So I thought that was helpful. So the first on the left, right, on your left is the pouring in model. So some of you are, I'm sure, familiar with the story of Jesus turning water into wine, one of his best miracles, and he pours in the water into the vessel and then it comes out and wine. The other would be the drawing out, and the image there is could be seen as referring to the woman at the well, and another episode in John's gospel where Jesus engages with the woman as she's going about the everyday work of drawing water from the well. So I, pairing these two models can suggest that one is better than the other. And certainly we were sort of moving away from the exclusively pouring in model, but I do think that good teaching incorporates both. I think it's important to acknowledge this, the sense of pouring in. I mean, students come to us in need of some religious literacy. There are some students who will have never opened a Bible, and I think it's important for them to have at least some familiarity before they leave, our campus with some biblical knowledge, to have some biblical knowledge. In addition to that, many have had, no exposure to other religious traditions, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam. So I think having some religious literacy is something that we can offer. Certainly there is this, what's known as the Catholic intellectual tradition, and it's vast, it's 2,000 years of thoughtful, prayerful writing about, Christianity and what Christ means. And so that drawing upon that, I think is also important. And then the charism of the CCBI sisters is at the heart of UIW. So just seeing that as something that students may need to be introduced to. But at the same time, just recognizing the way in which students are truly strong contributors of knowledge. That's borrowing from Dr. Gina Garcia's phrasing, which I'll talk about her in a minute. And then, in my time in San Antonio, yes, I've been here a long time, but I'm coming from Midwestern background. And so I've gradually become more and more acquainted with traditions of Hispanic or Latina Catholicism that are really rich in the way that they integrate religion and culture, don't separate out sort of religious practices in the same way that maybe my Anglo Catholicism upbringing has oriented me. So, and then, our identity as a Catholic Hispanic serving institution is central to our role as an institution, just as central, I think, as the charism of the sisters, both of those elements. So I wanted to just say a little bit about this HSI identity, and I'm drawing from Dr. Gina Garcia's work on this. She's not the only one, but she is an influential leader in the field. And she talks about becoming an unapologetic HSI. And I think this picture illustrates that. I love how she's, got her sneakers propped up. She's sitting between these two giant pillars that are, kind of maybe representational of the institutional Western tradition of knowledge seeking that, that she's inviting to be sort of questioned and opened up. She looks at this federal designation of Hispanic Serving Institution, which has been around since the 90s, as a springboard for thinking about what she calls servingness. And it's the idea that Hispanic Serving Institutions really should not be just looking at what percentage of Hispanic students they enroll, but how do they serve those students and empower them through education? She's got various ways. She was just here last year speaking on these issues, and she acknowledges how slow institutional change is, which I found very refreshing to hear, because I've been thinking about these issues for a long time, and there hasn't been as much change as I would have hoped. But she looks at structural issues like hiring and retention. She looks at what kind of campus culture will encourage Hispanic identifying students, Latinx students to feel like they belong. And then also the part that I'm most concerned with is the culturally relevant curriculum. So that's where this new course comes into play, has the catchy prefix RELS 1330, the word in the world. So I'll talk a little bit more about the title. It was launched in 2022. It was the result of a collaborative effort of full-time faculty with the grant-funded consultation of an outside consultant, Father Jean-Pierre Ruiz, from St. John's University. And he was essential to us as faculty being able to come to some consensus, because faculty, as you may know, tend to be very, we are paid to kind of carve out our individual identities. So developing a collaborative project can be a challenge. So having this outside guide was really important. But we all identified certain goals of the course. We wanted it to be explicitly student-centered. We wanted it to acknowledge the way in which these years are a formative phase in students' lives, even for non-traditional students. If they're committing to a 4-year college education, they're opening themselves up to transformation. And so we wanted to be intentional about owning that as part of our responsibility. And then looking at, as part of that, looking at opportunities for reflection and integration with attentive to our local context. In South Central Texas, we're not on the border, but a lot of our students have a borderlands experience. Even those who are not Mexican American or Mexican nationals, they still will have a hybrid identity and can identify with many aspects of this borderland experience. And then just the fact that we have rich resources here on campus, visible reminders of Indigenous presence kind of adds to the richness that we can create help students be aware of. So I just wanted to share with you one simple exercise I do the very first day of class, and then I'll also talk a little bit more about the course content as I see it. And this gives students an opportunity for reflection and also a way to hopefully see themselves in some aspect of the course. So I begin with a mural exercise. It's not the first thing I do, but I start actually with an introduction of a working definition of religion, which I've tried to make as broad but as useful as possible. And it's religion is a vision of the world as it should be and a path to get there or to achieve that vision. And then with that in mind, I invite them to look at these. I give them a choice of 3 different murals. So 2 of these, this one, and then this breakfast taco mural. These are local, so they are in San Antonio, and occasionally a student will mention having seen them. This one is not. I haven't been able to find where this one is, but I give them a choice of looking at the 3, and then we do an exercise that I've learned from Dr. Sandy Guzman Foster is called beholding, and just asking simple questions. What do you see? Why do you see it? Why does it, what about your particular perspective leads you to see what you see? And then finally, what does it mean? And consistently, I've found that this simple exercise just invites students from the beginning to make connections between their own background and the content of the course. You might not see any explicitly religious content in these breakfast tacos, but believe me, it's there. There's a way in which they are kind of sacralized, and even the image of abuela making tortillas is also sacralized. So it gives us a really cool way to talk about combination between religion and culture. But going back to the borderlands experience as a central theme, as a way to, I kind of want to lead into looking at our study of the Nican Mopahua, the account of the appearance of Guadalupe, which is another, more central part of the course. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with Gloria Anzaldua's work, the Borderlands La Frontera. She very memorably and influentially identified the borderlands experience, describing specifically, the Mexican-American border as an open wound, but also that metaphor can be broadened to other experiences of living between 2 worlds. She talks about the collision of these 2 worlds and the way in which she herself didn't feel part of one or the other and how alienating that was. At the same time that she talks about this open wound, she also recognizes the way in which that experience has been a source of creativity for her. And so many students recognize whether, regardless of the hybridity of their identity, they recognize themselves in the sense of not feeling like they belong fully in one world or the other. And so, she articulated the mestizo identity or experience in a powerful way that I think has then influenced theology on Guadalupe. So that's where we spend a considerable amount of time, about 3 weeks in the class. We read from the Nika Mopahua, which is the account of the appearance of Guadalupe to Juan Diego. And it's really a poetic account. So it invites people who may otherwise feel very alienated about the idea of a apparition. It invites them to think more openly about what this communication, this divine communication was about. And I'm drawing really a lot on the work of Dr. Virgil Elizondo on this, his interpretive work, his theological work on Guadalupe. And he draws out the way in which the story, and I think I will read from my notes here because I liked how I said it. If I can find it. Yeah, how am I doing on time, by the way? Okay, cool. So he says, or no, this is not his words, but it's how I kind of interpret what he's doing. He sees Guadalupe as how the God of justice relentlessly communicates with humankind in the language of our heart and is always working to empower and renew us. That's demonstrated most clearly probably in the story of Jesus, but also in the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And so that thread is very strong. There'll always be students, often Anglo students or Protestant students who are not familiar with Guadalupe, even those who come from San Antonio are not familiar. And so this creates an opportunity for those who have some familiarity or even some devotion to Guadalupe to kind of educate those who are less familiar. And so that's a great part of the course. I did want to just speak quickly about the intersectionality of students and the way in which, even those students who are coming from Mexican-American homes, there's no way to assume that they have a particular religious affiliation. And in fact, many students are seekers, and I want to be open and acknowledge their perspectives as well. So this is just a recent study from the Pew Research Center that found 28% of US American adults identify as religiously unaffiliated. Sociologists of religion call them nuns because they will check a box when offered a list of different religious traditions or options. They'll check the box that says none. So, and typically, not surprisingly, that group tends to demographically be a younger cohort. So, even those students who will check, I'm Catholic, they're still exploring. It's just part of life and young adulthood for sure. And we see that in these student voices. I gave students an opportunity, this is from this semester, so to speak about their experience of the class so far. So I'll just read these. First one, I often found myself forming connections with the reading and felt understood. Not once did I feel judged, and I have learned many views of others. Also find it interesting to have discussions with my peers in the classroom, as we all have different backgrounds and views, which I enjoy learning more about. And then the second, through this class so far, I've realized there are many things I believe in that many religious people do as well. Interesting, distinction there. But I think my beliefs are more broad. With how this class is being taught, I think I feel more understood than I have before about my religion, which means a lot, especially at a Catholic-based university. And then I did give them the option of including a selfie, which this student, Gail Angulo, took advantage of. And I love how his image and his comments kind of interact with each other. So he says, I was raised Catholic, and despite falling out of their tradition, I still try to live my life as close to Christ's example as best I can. Despite dubious evidence existing for his theological claims, so he's asking some hard questions, I think his moral and spiritual teachings were worthy of admiration and use as a standard to live up to. So I'm especially looking forward to his input, as well as other students, when we turn toward the end of the class, toward a section on Jesus's teachings. We'll be looking at the Sermon on the Mount, which some of you I'm sure are familiar with. It's in Matthew's Gospel. It's 3 chapters. It's the most concentrated collection of Jesus's teachings in the New Testament. And so with the guide of a Jewish biblical scholar, actually, we go through the Sermon on the Mount and try to engage with it. And I'm continually impressed with how earnestly students engage with these teachings, despite how challenging they really are. So that's a cool part of the course as well. So thank you for the opportunity to share. And
That was great. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Jose Moreno, who is originally from Guadalajara, Mexico, with professional experience in banking, corporate finance, and entrepreneurship. He moved to the Rio Grande Valley to pursue PhD in business, specializing in finance and international business at UT-RGV. He is currently a professor and department chair at the HEB School of Business and Administration, where he has been teaching since 2008. Dr. Moreno takes great pride in his Hispanic roots and cultural values, particularly emphasizing family values and respect for elders. His ponencia is titled Journey of Cultural Immersion and Language Acquisition in Guanajuato. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me here? Good. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. And also, I want to thank all the students that are interested to be here and listen about these presentations. As Gabriel says, I think that most of the activities we do in the university are for your benefit. We want to look for you to grow as a person. And that is part of the deal with this project that I'm going to be presenting to you. I'm just making time because I want you to look at the picture. I don't know if you have been there in Guanajuato, but if you haven't, then you can see how beautiful it is, all the colors for different buildings there. Guanajuato was for some time the capital of Mexico. It was one of the most important colonial cities during the time that we were conquered by the Spaniards. And yeah, still you can see all that history when you go into the city. What I'm going to be talking about here, first, I want to thank you because I want to thank these 2 people because without them, this wouldn't happen. First of all, Lupita, Maestra Lupita, she worked in Campus Irapuato. And if we have some people connected in Zoom from Irapuato, I really want to thank you all because, yeah, we really appreciate it. And Lupita is the one with the colorful shirt because the other one is Melo Rayana, which is here. He's our student. And Dr. Ayedele is on the other side. Dr. Ayedele, he was a marketing professor, an entrepreneurship professor at the School of Business. And he was very eager to work with the students and get this opportunity done for all our students here in San Antonio. The idea of this presentation basically is to share with you what the learning experience was when a group of students went to Guanajuato, specifically to some small towns, indigenous towns in Guanajuato, with the goal to look for opportunities to do business with artisans, indigenous artisans there. Okay, you can see one of the pictures here. We have 2 groups, 2022 and 2023, we had students going there. Then some of the things that we need to have or to understand before all the planning, because the trip, it requires a lot of time before to be planned. And also it requires a lot of support from different parts. One of them, the Department of Education, we asked for a fund, a grant funding to the Business and International Education grant. They gave the university to $100,000 around to fund for 2 years this program, which helps a lot because students didn't have to pay for their airfare and their hotel. And that was an all-pay trip, all included. We need a lot of local support from our people in Irapuato. All the people in Campus Bajío was involved. They were really welcoming us all the time. We also need motivated faculty to make this successful. And students, of course, they need to be there. They need to want to be there. Otherwise, this is not, it wouldn't work. And of course, the most important component was the availability to have access to indigenous communities, which sometimes is hard in Mexico, especially. I think that everywhere, but in Mexico especially, indigenous communities have been relegated by the government, and most of the time they are just afraid of people that is not part of their community. Then we had the opportunity to work with them, and that was a very, very good experience. Just following with the presentation, in order to prepare the students for this trip, they enrolled to a class, and then they had to have several meetings during the semester before the trip to understand all the things, all the details about what are the expectations that they should, or what the things that they should expect when they are there. For some of the students that they participate in this program, they already had the language, they speak Spanish, and not all of them. I think that I would say that 30% of the students speak Spanish fluently, but the rest of them, they don't have an idea about how to go there. It was a totally new experience for them. In addition to the language, all the experience about what do you expect on the cultural, in the society, things that you can do and things that you cannot do. Just to give an example, the way that people dress can be different here in Texas than in people in Irapuato and Guanajuato. Then they have to understand that differences. Then the professor of the class had to spend a lot of time inviting people from Irapuato, connecting via Zoom, giving that experience in advance, just electronically. Then when they go there, they can have that they're not going to be very surprised about what they can expect. So part of the goals of this, I think they skip one of the slides. Yeah, let me just go back here. The goals were basically for the students to get educated in international business and entrepreneurship, and also to acquire a language and some international expertise. Which means that they had to have some cultural immersion and a foreign language expertise. Then this is one of the keys of this trip that gave us access to the community, indigenous communities. We were not looking for the students to learn Spanish, because some of them already had that, but they were looking for learn the languages of these communities. Then we visited the first year a community that they speak Chichimeca, which is part of the communities there in that area. And also the second year was Otomi. Then the students had that experience about learning some of the basics about the language, okay? In addition to that, once that we were there, and this is part of also already of the trip, well, the first part was to visit the places where the artisans were, right? The workshops, for example, here, you can see in the video, the blue frame video, one of the artisans doing molcajetes, right? They said they were the best ones, the old ones, and they show the process about how they get, it's like 3 days to collect the rocks that they are gonna be using for that. And one of the things that the students discover is that when the artisan price the product, the final product, they include only the cost of the material, which is nothing. But then the 3 days of work that they had to spend by collecting the rocks and doing the art craft, they didn't take care. Then the students were trying to work with them in order to help them to understand that their job is valuable, right? And then we have other workshops with other materials. Some of the students were doing art crafts. They have some experiences there, which was a very interesting part of the experience there. So going back to the part of the language, as I said, we have 36 students, 18 in 1 year, 18 in the second year. Some of them, they learn Otomi, some of them, they learn Chichimeca. But I would say they are not fluently at all. But the experience to be there and learn and try to communicate with the communities, that was the most important benefit of that. One of the experiences in the first year is that the chief of the community, in this case, I mentioned that Don Nacho, we connect with him via our people in Irapuato, and he was basically very welcoming about this visit. They want to show all their traditions, all the language. Then he gives the opportunity to, they feed us like in no other place. They are very happy for us to be there. Then yeah, that was a very nice experience. Then I want to show you a video related to that experience. Sustaining there is a bread, and this is only for people when they're visiting. Then they are blessing the bread, and then once that they bless the bread, you have to share with all the people that is visiting and the people from the community. And yeah, that's part of the welcoming event that we had there. In addition to going to indigenous communities, they also learn about the more new culture. Ones that after some years, one of them is the charreada. They participate in a charreada. Then, if you know, if you're familiar with Mexican traditions, charreadas is this event where we have like a cowboys right there, and they have different events that they do with the tradition. Then students were there, they ride on the horses, and yeah, they also ate very well that day. The idea of the Otomi language and how they learn, it was basically in the year one was well, I already mentioned some of this. It was Otomi and Chichimeca. And then we had the opportunity to visit some communities, specifically the Arroyo Seco community. In the second year, we had we visited another community, a very poor community, and then where the Señora Consuelo was there. And she taught our students how to cook some of the tortillas. I don't remember the name of the tortilla, but it was an interesting process there. So this video that I'm going to show you right there is for the first year, the year one that we had this program, and they received us in a elementary school, and they were waiting for us. It was a great experience, and you will see some of this is a welcoming part also for the community.
Disfrutemos y enriquezcamos nuestro conocimiento en actividades ancestrales de nuestra cultura usa, como lo es este ritual de la preparación de un guerrero que nos muestran los alumnos de esta escuela. Preparación de un guerrero. Hace muchos años, los Tesa realizaban gran variedad de rituales, entre ellos la purificación que acabamos de presenciar en un inicio. conocida como saumerio, y el ritual de la preparación que ahora presenciamos.
One of the things that these communities are trying to do is to preserve with the younger people all that traditions. Then, as part of the curriculum in their schools, it's not only about the basics in math and reading, but also about their traditions, which is also part of it. Then just to finalize this presentation, just some of the summary of this trip. Well, students visited indigenous communities. They observe specific cultural differences. They learn about new traditions, food, dress codes, and family values. Students also observe the critical role of religion in history, art, and architecture. There's a long report that we had to submit to the grant as a part of the results of that. But yeah, that was great. That was, I'm gonna just go to the next video, which is the one that shows you the comments from the students.
But it was really interesting, and I think, like for example, when we went to that one place where we got the blessing, that was really cool to see. Like they played the music for us, and they sprinkled the flowers on us and gave us the bread. I've never really seen anything like that, and it really felt like an honor to be there, because their hospitality was just really welcoming and really cool to see.
I kind of wanted to add, because like I'm also not fluent in Spanish, and I kind of noticed that my Spanish really improved a lot after after being immersed. And like one thing that I was like really surprised at was just like how accepting people were like with me like trying to speak another language. Like I was even told that like well like we appreciate you trying and everything, like even though like obviously like Spanish isn't my first. Like I have like a little bit of background in Spanish, and I can like have basic conversations and stuff.
Like I love just seeing how close they were to their native traditions, and how he was talking about even today it's kind of dying out. Like the language is fading very, very fast, and it's a problem trying to keep that alive in this world that's moving really, really fast. A lot of their old traditions were kept alive through their tribe, such as their cooking methods as well. And I found it just to be very, very humbling.
I really did enjoy the workshops, but I definitely loved more whenever we were like learning the language and spending time with like the chief, and he was explaining the ritual to us and everything, because it felt like more of a personal connection. We learned like their craft, or we learned their ideas, but we could also ask questions, or go further with the language, like, oh well, can we learn colors now, or oh, can we learn days now, versus at the other place, whenever we try to ask questions, there was just less time for it, unfortunately.
I guess the simplest conclusion I can come to is that what surprised me the most is that how they can be so happy living such a simple lifestyle.
And it was very humbling as well. I remember coming back to San Antonio and just being so grateful that I had this place with all of this direct investment, and it's the complete opposite, where you go to a place where there's absolutely nothing.
It really was a great experience, and it really given me like a better appreciation for what I do have, because I got to see like what people don't have, and they're not as fortunate as my life is right now. And I think their passion for what they do was very inspiring, and it was just really amazing to see it.
Learning in school, learning in classroom is great, but having that personal experience and that direct connection is just a completely different way of learning, and it really sticks with you. And as someone with the medical field, I've learned a lot of things that I want to carry along the way and apply to my time in pharmacy school. So it's good.
It was an amazing trip. That's all I have to say.
Great. So I just want to thank, before I get started, I want to thank my co-presenters for today for not only giving us these thought-provoking discussions, but also for sticking to the time limit. I'm going to do my best, but sometimes it's hard to, even just say my name in under 15 minutes. Okay. Anyways, thank you for being here. My name is Julio Gabriel Tobias Saxton Rivera Romo. You can call me Gabriel. Okay. I'm a professor of Spanish. I specialize in Latin American literatures, rural, and cultures, plural. I've published 5 books. I've got 2 coming out next year, hopefully, if I can get my brain working again. I'm a little bit on the sabbatical brain because I was off last semester, having a lot of fun and traveling. And so getting back into the swing of things has been kind of a challenge for me, but I'll get there eventually. I've been teaching for 22 years, 8 of which have been here. 22 years is weird to me because I'm still in my 20s, so I'm not. But anyways, I'm obviously having a midlife crisis. That's why I dress the way I do, and I wear baseball caps all the time. Anyways, early on in my career, since I teach literature and cultural studies, I teach a lot of writing emphasis courses. And I figured out that if I'm teaching and I have got 28, 30 students in the class and I'm assigning 10-page papers, there's not enough coffee to deal with all those papers. And so, and this is a little secret to the students over here. If you're receiving 28 papers, not all 28 are fun to read, okay? I know it's a shocker, but some are just beautiful, some are amazing, but some take a little longer to read and understand than the person who wrote them. So I started to think about creative, different ways to give assignments to the students that would also serve, my pedagogical, objectives. And so one of the ones that I came up with, and this is something that, like I said, that I began to design and play with in the beginning of my career, and then I still do, and I tweak it every time I offer it. But it has to do with Latin American cuisine. And I'll just show you just some of the things that I can do when just talking about food. And there's going to be a whole bunch of images. I hope you guys all ate. If not, there's going to be a little bit of rumbling. And bueno, no pasa nada. We can eat later, okay? Anyways, so the first thing I always like to talk about is my favorite food, which is my mom's cooking. And I'm lucky, though, because my mom and all of that side of the family is from Peru. And that's pretty much what all Peruvians can come together and agree on is food. Because when I was a kid in the 80s and the 90s, Peru was experiencing the years of political violence. It was, for all intents and purposes, a civil war, which pitted this terrorist group called Sendero Luminoso, Shining Path, against the armed forces. There was also another group called Movimiento Revolucionario Tupac Amaru, MRTA. So it was a bad time, nothing to be proud of. Our economy was horrible. It was characterized by hyperinflation. We talk about inflation over here. You don't know inflation, okay? Like we had in Peru in the 80s and 90s, okay? We had these austerity measures that were planned and ill-timed. And we also sucked at soccer. And that's a big deal, okay? Peru made it to the World Cup in 1982. You know, the last time after 1982 they played in the World Cup? Any guesses? 2018, cabrón. ¿Qué pasa? Yeah, but yeah, it was a long drought, okay? And then after 2018, they haven't been back. So what do we have that is cool and that we like and that we're very proud of? Food. So what can I do with food? There we go. Okay. Anyways, well, first off, after the years of political violence, with a little bit of distance, especially around 2005, 2006, Peru and Lima specifically are written up in all of the major publications, all the fine dining magazines like Gourmet and Bon Appetit. And it was a big source of pride. Looking for me. Bueno. There we go. Okay. So besides American publications, Peruvian cooking was known internationally, okay? And I'm not just saying that it's the best food because it's my mom's food and because I'm right. I'm also saying it because other, I guess, organizations that deal with giving awards to the best culinary destinations in the world had Peru winning for years and years and years, okay? There's a weird anomaly in 2020, okay? I think that had to do with COVID, but Peru didn't win, okay? But other than that, we're the best, okay? ¿Verdad? Perfecto, muy bien. Is it working? Okay, sweet. So you can see here all the different awards. And 2024 has not come out yet, but for South America, Peru did win, okay? See? We'll see at the end of this month if they continue the reign globally, right? Last year, the world's best restaurant, according to the same organization, was Central, Virgilio Martinez's famous restaurant in Lima. And for some reason, they have this best male chef, best female chef, whatever. I didn't come up with it, but last year's best female chef was also Peruvian, Leon, okay, who happens to be the wife of Virgilio Martinez from Central, and her restaurant, Coye, is just on top of Central. So anyways, kind of a big thing. Through food, I can talk about, obviously, the meeting of cultures, the coming together, whether it's peacefully, whether it's via conquest, via wars, conflicts, etc. And I can talk about one of my favorite dishes, ceviche, which there's a lot of debate as to where it got its name, the origin of the dish, whether it's even Peruvian. It is, but anyways, we can talk about that later. But the question is, like, ceviche, where does it come from? Is it from the Arabic shibich, which means acidic fruit? Is it escabeche, which is pickled in vinegar type of dishes? Or is it ceviche, which in Quechua, the language of the Incas, right, means fresh fish? Who knows? For me, it's more ceviche, because it sounds closer to ceviche, but I don't know. This is just something that I think about all the time. And then another dish, the one on the left, this thing right here, is called tiradito. And that's thinly sliced fresh fish, raw fish, okay, which celebrates and acknowledges the influence of Japanese cooking. So it's like a sashimi, right? But of course, anybody who has been to Peru or studied Peru knows that Japanese immigrants arrived in Peru and are an important population, an important community in the country, and they've been there since the mid-19th century. So through food, I can talk about these dishes, the origin stories, but then I can also talk about differences between Latin American countries, because I know I've seen a lot of faces right now when I said ceviche es peruano, right? And you guys were like about to kill me. Look at that. Sácil, huh? Tranquila, por favor. No, but yeah, sure. There's ceviche in Chile, in Ecuador, in Costa Rica, and of course in Mexico, okay? And so it's something that is fun to talk about. Some other dishes really highlight, again, this fusion of culture, fusion of different groups that have arrived in Peru, different social classes, and a lot of them, right, deal or include this this autochthonous ingredient called ají amarillo. This is yellow pepper, which you can see in this dish, which is kind of like elevated cuisine, but then more I think more humble, more, let's just say more people food, more comfort food, like papa la huancaína or carapucra. And then I can also talk about the slave trade. I can talk about the contribution of Afro-Peruvians with this, anticuchos, which are also often served with a yellow pepper sauce, ají amarillo sauce. And anticuchos are skewers of beef hearts. And they're delicious. They're absolutely wonderful, and they're one of the most important street foods in Peru. And guess what? If you guys go to Fiesta, if you go to Nayosa, you can try them too. So here's just a screenshot from an article that came out a few years ago showing these delicious anticuchos. However, since you guys here in San Antonio are a little more fancy, right? You don't do the beef hearts, you do things like sirloin and tenderloin. Awesome, good for you, okay? But try the beef hearts, they're pretty damn good. Anyways, look at this. Since 1955, Nayosa has been having anticuchos. Toma ya. Muy bien. Bueno, Peru is also famous as being a country of meat and potatoes. It's not always ceviche. It's not always tiradito. It's not always causa. It's not always seafood, even though we've got just this amazing coast with this abundance of incredible seafood. It's also very important meat and potatoes kind of gastronomic experience, especially its rotisserie chicken. This roasted chicken is just a huge thing. And up and down the East Coast of the United States, you can find all kinds of restaurants that are Peruvian style. Pollo, rostizado, etc., pollo asado, that has a very unique taste, basically because of its marination. And we also had one here in San Antonio. Peruvian rotisserie, brasa chicken. I don't know if it's still there, but it was pretty good. But besides the chicken, the one thing I wanted to highlight is really just the potato. So Peru is the birthplace of the potato. I know I always ask students, where are potatoes from? And everybody's like, Ireland and Idaho. No, cabrones, por favor, come on. Really? La papa es peruana, okay? So much so that the Chileans are what is the plural for nemesis? Nemesi? I don't know. Nemesis? Nemesis, okay. The Chileans are arch nemesis, right? Even took us to court, or we took them to court. I don't know. The point is, a grad student from University of Mexico, or I'm sorry, University of Michigan, discovered that the origin of the humble and beautiful potato is actually in what today is Peru. So it's in that border region, okay, next to Chile, but it's still Peru, cabrones, okay? So let's remember that, all right? Not Ireland, okay? Anyways, just to show you guys some of the propaganda that we get as children in Peru, these little books right here. This is the cover of a book that says, Papa, la papa, soy peruanita. I'm Peruvian, don't you forget it, okay? We're very proud of our potatoes. As you can see here, we've got roughly around 5,000 different varieties of potatoes. So it's seen as a very, not just a food of sustenance, but it also is involved in numerous rituals. In terms of soft drinks, right? When I study and discuss globalization with my students, I always ask them, what's the soft drink that sells the most around the world? What are you talking about, right? Come on. Vamos! Coca-Cola. Wow, thanks, huh? Get some coffee, por favor, for the next presentation. Yes, it's Coca-Cola. Right? But there are two nations that resisted Coca-Cola. Scotland with Irna-Bru, sorry, my pronunciation in Scottish is horrible, and Inca Cola. Very similar in taste. They taste like bubble gum. It's actually an herb called yerba luisa. Sickly sweet, but we love it, okay? Also, another form of resistance is we try to go against a lot of these high fructose corn syrup drinks like Kool-Aid and whatever. And so we have our drink with purple corn, and it's called chicha morada. It's delicious. Problem is it gets your tongue all purple, you know, and then when you're a little kid and you're having your friends over and then they go home to their parents' house and there's all these purple tongues, you know, and then your parents get a call and you get in trouble, okay? But there is alcoholic chicha jora, or there's chicha morada, which is just a kid's drink. We are also very proud of our Chinese/Cantonese style Peruvian food. There is a chifa, which is the name of the cuisine and also the style of restaurant. We find those in every corner, every major city of Peru, and it's a Sunday ritual to have chicha. And how do we accompany our chicha? With Inca Cola, okay? Because it's generally spicy or very sour, and Inca Cola is sickly sweet. So we talk a lot about food and different ways to discuss food in this class. Of course, another thing that's kind of unique to Peru is the prestige that these chefs have. The highest grossing film of 2014 was called Finding Gaston. It's a documentary about a celebrity chef. Okay, it's not a blockbuster action flick. It's not a period drama. It's a documentary about a cook. They always ask Gaston Acurio for his opinions on politics. People on every election cycle want him to run, want him to be president. Okay, I find that very interesting. It's a country that is obsessed with food. I wonder who would be like the celebrity chef here that would, you know, run for president, huh? Can we think of anybody? Sodexo. Emerald? Well, I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking Bobby Flay, but Who knows? I don't know. But anyways, talking about food isn't always about positive things, right? And so obviously we have to talk about inequality. We talk about malnutrition, food insecurity, and that's a huge problem in Peru and all of Latin America. And so that is another thing that when we talk about food, it allows us to discuss other societal and structural issues. It got to the point where, you know, this narrative of Peruvian food, that's all we're good at. It became such a hegemonic discourse that there was some pushback and people were like, no, let's talk about gastrofascism now. But anyways, it's a story for another day. And I'm going to skip over this part right here because I know I'm running a little bit out of time, but just so you know real quickly, any Peruvian who mocks or even slightly criticizes Peruvian food, death threats. Okay, they are ostracized, completely isolated, persona non grata. And that happened to my friend Ivan Tais. It happened to my friend Gustavo Rodriguez. That's me with a little more hair, but still very young. And then my good friend Daniel Titinger decided to do this hoax online, which he thought was really funny. He's going to write a book, right, saying against Peruvian gastronomy and throw 2 guinea pigs in a compromised position because we eat guinea pig in Peru. It was a hoax. He posted it. The next day, he wakes up and there's like 500 messages, you know, half of them supporting him, the other half wishing him very bad things. So it's an interesting thing to think about when we talk about this food-obsessed nation. Later on, when I give Rafael the bibliography and all these different further readings, I will have a whole section on different links if you're interested in exploring more. Anyways, so with the few more minutes that I have left, I do want to kind of talk about this assignment that I do. And it's for a class that I teach, like I said, every couple of years, and it's 3312. It's Cultures of Latin America, or Culture and Civilization of Latin America. I don't know. I hate titles, okay? So I change the title and I give it something that I like, okay? I call it Netflix and Chilaquiles, okay? Because we talk a lot about food and we watch a lot of Netflix documentaries. This one in particular, street food. We're doing lots of comparative work. We're engaging with all the different issues related to food. And so don't worry, I don't just talk about Peru. I talk about Mexico and Peru, okay, at the same time. All right, so tranquilos, no se ofendan. Yeah. I also mentioned the awesome chefs from Mexico, okay? So don't worry, all right? It's a little more inclusive of a class, okay? Anyways, here is then I got 2 more minutes, so I'm going to go really fast. I apologize. Here is the assignment real quickly. And basically, students have to pick a region, a cultural zone, and research a dish that is representative of that region, prepare it, and present on it, share it with the class, and then write a short 2 to 3 page reaction paper on the process. Right here, our students in my study abroad trip in Spain, one thing that I am very careful about doing is making sure that they all get a chance to take a cooking class when we're abroad. But I wanted to replicate that during the semester-long classes, but I still haven't gotten us all in the kitchen together. So basically, students work together at home or work at home, and then they bring their food to class. Now, I do something embarrassing. So I've got a little YouTube channel where I do my silly cooking, okay? Because if I'm going to force students to get embarrassed and get out of their comfort zone, well, I'm going to do the same thing. So I make a Spanish omelet, a tortilla de patatas, okay? And I embarrass myself doing it just for the benefit of the students, okay? But let me show you a couple images of my students. This is Brian Cervantes making ceviche. This is David Santillano making chipawasu from Paraguay. This is Cristina Guidre making empanadas from Argentina. This is Luis Martinez making some buñuelos with queso de Oaxaca. Here's Nimzi Barbosa making some Salvadorian pupusas. What? This is Antonio. He's making a lasagna with plantains. That's a Puerto Rican dish. And this is my student, Natalia, who made this incredible pineapple stuffed with shrimp dish. this student, well, things didn't go well, okay? And so I forget what she was trying to make, but she just said, I'm sorry. And all we did was publicly shame her, okay? So not a big deal, okay? And then this is Dina. She made arepas, which were awesome. And then, well, just to kind of wrap things up really quickly, I've done this with 28 students and I've done this with 5 students. It's always a lot of fun. This is from a few years ago. And every now and then, like you get a nun who wants to get in on the action. What is she doing, huh? She wanted to get some food. Or we get the head of the faculty senate right there, huh? Who wants some food, huh? I don't know, metiches, but anyways, no worries. And then this is the last time I did it. So I know I've gone over my time and I apologize, but I just get so excited talking about food and I'm so hungry right now that I think we're going to wrap things up. Just real quickly, there's a question I always get when I talk about some of my assignments, especially ones that deal with food. 2 things. If a student has a food allergy, obviously I work with them, okay? I don't want anybody to die. Okay. Plus, I'm a father of 2 kids, an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, both with deathly food allergies. I'm very careful. Second of all, I do tell students don't spend more than $20. I know that's excessive to a certain extent, but I tell them that my tortilla de patatas costs $6 to make. Okay. So I try to keep things, obviously, I don't want anybody to feel bad about this assignment. I try my best to be accommodating. Anyways, I've spoken way too much. So let's finish things up and then we've got some minutes for questions and comments. Muchas gracias.
Just a round of applause. Did I say it? So let's open it up for questions. Just go right to it and we can ask questions to any of our 3 presenters, Dr. Adrian Ambrose, Dr. Jose Moreno, or Dr. Gabriel Sexton Ruiz. And I did get a couple of questions on my questions.
Busters. Thank you for the presentation. It was interesting because I saw part of my indigenous background. So I'm Otomi and Spanish. I'm half and half. So the question I have for the speakers is, how did you get that connection with the indigenous tribes of Mexico and the schools there?
Well, as I mentioned, the people from Irapuato, in our campus in Irapuato, they help us to do that connection. We have very good friends in Guanajuato, right? And they, in the government specifically, and they help us to connect with these communities. The event that you watch on the video with the kids, that was prepared for us, but also they know that part of the government representatives will be there, then they will try to be ready for them too. Yeah.
Yeah, hello. My name is Jasmine, and I didn't catch your name, ma'am. But the question I have for you is, do you have any more resources on Guadalupe as a Mesanisa? Mestizaje? I'm so sorry. Me and words don't work. But yes, that seemed like a very intriguing topic to me, and I had stepped out to go to the bathroom, and so I think I missed a portion. But any resources that you could share would be helpful.
Sure. Well, the one that we read in class is Dr. Virgil Elizondo's Guadalupe, Mother of the New Creation. And so that would be, I think, the good place to start. And then he makes some references to some others. And then there's another more recent book that came out that's more of a sociological study, Our Lady of Everyday Life, it's called, where the author has interviewed a lot of Mexican-American women of different age groups to see how they see Guadalupe in their lives. So those are 2 that just off the top of my head I could suggest. Thanks for your interest.
Questions here or comments? Yes.
Just quickly, Gabriel, do you know when the Mexican culture or Latin American culture class will be offered again?
Great question. Pope Francis. That's my nickname for him. Because his name is Francis, okay? And he's also going to be a priest, okay? It's a good nickname. But yeah, it's going to be next semester at noon, Tuesdays and Thursdays, okay? And so everybody here who's a student, I'm assuming you're going to be in that class, okay? If not, good luck passing this semester.
Yo.
Hi, my name is Yaleli. From Laredo, Texas. Sorry, Bill told me to say this. My question is, how were you able, or how did you feel that the students were able to connect with the culture in Guanajuato? Because I also went on a trip with Theo in the Etling Center last summer, and it was a very eye-opening experience. So I wanted to see how your students felt after taking that trip, especially since it was like more of a business related.
Well, I can give a summary of it, but I would like Mel to answer that question because I know that she participated in that event. Could you share some of your experience, Mel?
I would say like the trip was really fun. You learn a lot of things when it comes to culture and language. So it was really nice because you connect with them in person. They also have like Zoom calls with us when they like we learn like the languages and their culture and all that. That way we can know what's expected when we go over there. So it's a really fun trip, honestly. Yeah. And you also like get to see a lot of places in Mexico, especially that view that you saw at the first picture. That was really beautiful. Yeah. So it was really nice.
Hi there. I have a question for you. So I'm thinking of the values that are embedded in business. Maybe it's a little more serious question, but was there any sense of, when you go in that you're always thinking about the value of reciprocity, embedded in everything about your project and being there and interacting with an indigenous community? So we won't be the big bad gringos or North Americans, you know what I mean? So the value of how are we really, making this a humanistic endeavor?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think based on the experience of the students, I can tell you that yes, most of the students, I don't know if you noticed, but not all the students were business students. Some of them, they were from pharmacy, nursing school. Then that was a great experience for them too. But for our business students, the goal of the class was presented to them like, you are gonna build a startup, a new company that requires to bring connections from artisans, specifically from indigenous communities, to help them to sell their products in the U.S. That was one of the keys of the class, the objectives. But definitely, once the students are there, they totally forgot about that goal. They focus on the culture part, they focus on the how they perceive the reality that they normally live in a daily basis with the reality they are looking at when they go to these places. And I can see, for example, one of the comments from the students after the celebration that we saw in the elementary school. 3 or 4 students tried to make a meeting with the people in Irapuato, try to figure out what kind of resources can be helpful from here, from us, to give or help them to. And one of the things that they said, well, they don't need money. They don't need, that's not a thing that they are asking for, right? But for example, one of the students, some of the people said, well, what if you communicate via Zoom and teach the kids on that school some English language? Then those were the kind of things that we're discussing on that. But yeah, definitely, it's a totally eyes-opening experience for the students.
Dr. Ambrose, I have a question. Thank you so very much, Jose. I have a question here. One of the topics that has come up throughout the presentations is about the importance of Hispanic heritage to people who are not Hispanic. And, why is Hispanic heritage for me? I'm not Hispanic, why, a whole month to Hispanic heritage. I mean, I'm not Hispanic. So what, and, you strike me as an example of someone, and I am reading into this a little bit, who has incorporated some of the Hispanic heritage here in San Antonio into your own cultural values and that it has enriched your life. I guess I'd love to hear you say, like, why is Hispanic heritage important to non-Hispanics, and particularly here in this region of South Texas?
Yeah, I've gotten that question before when we were developing the class. It came up. I don't find that that's a question that students ask. I mean, I don't sense that they're even. I mean, I think that the way that they are engaging with the material suggests to me that they see the value of it wherever it, they're not thinking of it as other. They're thinking of it as something, whatever their background is, as something that's interesting, engaging, compelling. So I try to begin the class by acknowledging the variety of perspectives and hope that that inclusive approach will ensure students engage with the material that they might not find familiar to them, but they can learn from. I don't know if that answers the question.
It's a great answer. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go into our 10-minute break. Well, let's give a round of applause for our presenters one more time. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. All right, you have 10 minutes to go ahead. Use the restroom, get some coffee, something. Anybody have t-shirts? Did anybody get the Hispanic Heritage t-shirts in here? Did anybody like a Hispanic Heritage t-shirt? All right. So what you're going to do, there's a little quick pro quo. You're going to have to do a little survey prior to. And I'm a big believer of when you go to the concert, you wear the concert tee at the concert. All right. So if you want to wear the shirt over the last segment on the home stretch, go for it. All right. So we'll see you. We're going to start promptly at 1:30. All right. So see you soon.